Hello, everybody. Nope. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another not applicable Formula One live stream. The 2023 season is upon us. We're nearly there. We nearly actually made it through the winter. Can we believe it? Can we actually believe it? We are almost through the winter. We've had testing. We're ready and raring to go. I don't know about you, but I'm very, very, very ready for this 2023 season. It feels like it has been a long time coming, which it shouldn't do because we had a lot of races last season, 22 races, more races than ever before. But I feel like when you have more races over the course of a season, it makes you almost feel like you deserve even more. And it makes you impatient when waiting for Grand Prix. I'm also not looking forward to the fact that we've got to wait for a few Grand Prix. We've got like Bahrain, then a couple of weekends, then Saudi, then a couple of weekends, then Australia, and then a few weekends again before we actually delve into the full Formula One season, as it were. And it's kind of taken a little while to get to kind of a good chunk of races, a good bulk of races for the 2023 season. But apart from that, I'm very, very positive moving into this year. Also very exciting. Just caught up on free practices whilst I was having a little bit of dinner, and it looks very, very weird. It looks like 2023 is set up to be a barnstormer. Barn burner. What's the stormer one? Barn burner, something stormer. Is going to be a barn burner of a season by the looks of things, and I'm ready for it. I am absolutely ready for it. Let's just double check that everything is working. Let's double check that we are live. Let's double check that we're functional in our ways. We are. It looks like we're live. It looks like we're ready. It looks like everything's set. Ready to go. I'm going to give it the yes. Perfect. Let's delve into it. This is our comprehensive guide to the Formula One 2023 season. That's right. We're going to talk about everyone, everything, and Formula One just in general that you need to know coming into this season. Everything that you just need to know. I should react to the 2023 intro. I might do that too, because the 2023 intro I haven't actually seen yet. I've heard good things. I've heard good things about the intro, to be fair. I've heard that it's better than last year's, where they were in that kind of cube setup, and it looked like Philip Schofield was going to come out and set them a challenge. But apart from that, I did quite like last year's, but this year's apparently is even better. An even better intro to the 2023 season, which we like to see. We like to see. Also, I don't know, I imagine it's sort of building up to the bigger teams again. I quite like when it does that. Like, it kind of ramps up. And I imagine Max Verstappen is like the last driver that you see in the intro. Guide number 1. The race curse remains. Well, we'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see. We'll see who wins this Bahrain Grand Prix and whether or not I've predicted them to come second in the championship. So if Charles Leclerc wins the Bahrain Grand Prix, I'm on for at least one of my predictions to be absolutely spot on. And if you haven't seen my predictions, they are linked in the description down below. Don't watch it now. Watch this first, but afterwards. I'll remind you later. Don't you worry. I'll remind you. I've already had a lot of comments on my 2023 predictions just being like, nope, wrong. And you're like, well, yeah, probably, but it's just a bit of fun, isn't it? It's nice. It's nice to have something to reflect on as well at the end of the season, I feel. Like, I do enjoy the predictions, but mainly just when I look back at the end of the season, I'm like, oh yeah, remember when we thought he was going to be good and he was absolutely dreadful? Or, oh yeah, remember when we thought that AlphaTauri were going to be like the worst team on the grid and actually they came like 5th. And you're like, ooh, what a surprise. Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of surprises during the season. That's kind of how Formula One goes. It feels like it's going to be very predictable. Feels like, all Red Bull are very good. They're just going to win. All Mercedes are very good. They're just going to win. But then something happens. Formula One loves to throw a spanner in the works. Formula One will have a regulation change, a rule change at some point during the season, and it will just absolutely throw a cat amongst the pigeons. But That is not what we're here to do today. Today, we are here to give a comprehensive guide to everything that you need to know heading into this 2022 Formula One season. Everything. All of the things. Drivers, teams, rules, tracks, calendar, what's coming up when, who should I know about, what's the difference between a race weekend and a sprint weekend, who's going to be where, what's going to be happening. I've got you covered. Don't you worry. And I've got you covered in the form of an incredible PowerPoint. Bada bing. Who doesn't love a PowerPoint? That's what I think, Who doesn't love a PowerPoint? I do. George Russell does. So that's what we're going to be doing today. A little bit of a PowerPoint with everything that you need to know. And there was a guy who came up on my suggested recently who started doing these Formula One PowerPoints. And I was really annoyed because I came up with this idea ages ago. And I was like, I'm going to do that the Friday before the first race of the season. Got it written in my calendar. Got it written in my notebook. I'm like, yeah, that's going to be it. And then he's done like a couple of videos since where he's done a Formula One PowerPoint. So now it looks like I'm copying his idea. But I promise you, I'm not. But even if I was copying his idea, it's YouTube, Did I enjoy Drive to Survive? I thought it was good. I thought it was like one of the mid seasons. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't really dull. It gave a little bit of insight. There wasn't too much behind the scenes this time around. I feel like teams are kind of cottoning on a bit and being like, well, can you just do an interview with the driver instead of actually being in our garage and like giving away things? Do a rap. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't have that ability. Is Alonso's radio going to be pure gold this year? I mean, Alonso's radio is pure gold every single year. Fernando Alonso just brings drama. He's effectively just a walking drama at this point, is Fernando Alonso. Just loves a little bit of drama, does Fernando Alonso. But shall we delve into a guide to Formula One? What is Formula One? Great question. Oh, come on. What is Formula One? Great question. Formula One is more commonly known as Formula One or F1. And that is the highest class of international racing of open-wheel single-seater Formula racing cars sanctioned by the Federazione Internazionale dell'Automobile. I said it in an Italian accent. It's French. FIA. The FIA's Formula One World Championship has been around since 1950, and the word formula in the name refers to the set of rules to which all participant cars must conform. It's the formula that they need to follow for their one car. They do have two cars, but that's by the by. And Formula One season consists of a series of races known as Grand Prix. Grand Prix take place across multiple countries and continents around the world on either purpose-built circuits or closed public roads, a street circuit, if you will. So if you're new to Formula One, that's what Formula One is. Definition Formula One there from Wikipedia. I feel like there's a few things we could change, but all in all, they've got it right. Formula One is what it says on the tin. Bang. The calendar. The 2023 season consists of 23 rounds this year, starting off in Abu Dhabi. No, starting off in Bahrain, finishing off in Abu Dhabi, coming towards the end of the season. So this is a Formula One guide that is going to give you everything that you need to know. 3rd of March to 5th of March, literally from today, we had the first free practice session. There are 15 weekends that do not have a Grand Prix on them throughout this year. So from now to November 26th, you get 15 weekends off. That's it. The rest are taken up by Formula One and watching it with me. That is how this is going to work, okay? You're going to be here every single weekend watching the Formula One live on this channel. That's how that works, okay? Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Australia, Azerbaijan, Miami, Imola, Monaco, Spain, Canada, Austria, United Kingdom, Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, Singapore, Japan, Qatar, USA, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, and Abu Dhabi. You're going to be here with me. That is how it's going to work. Unless Las Vegas doesn't get approved this year. Now, we all thought Saudi Arabia wasn't going to get approved. It was literally a desert about 3 weeks before the Grand Prix, and that still went ahead. So the likelihood is Las Vegas will get approved. Still technically hasn't been approved, but I'm sure it will be by the time that we get there. There are 10 teams in Formula One: Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, AlphaTauri, Williams, Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, Alpine, Haas, and McLaren. Don't worry about that too much. We'll delve into them in a little bit more detail later. A race weekend. What have you got to look forward to? This weekend is a normal race weekend, a standard race weekend that's split across 3 days. 3 days. Friday to Sunday. On Friday, couple of free practice sessions. Honestly, if you didn't watch the free practice sessions today, don't worry. Lots of people don't really watch free practice. It's kind of the bonus. If you're really into Formula One, you just love watching cars go round, the free practice there is to give you an extra couple of hours of Formula One. Most people delve into the Saturday onwards. This is split into, again, a couple of different things. Free practice 3 takes place on a Saturday. So again, if you really love Formula One, you just want to watch cars, then you can do. You just have to watch the free practice 3 session as well. But qualifying generally on a Saturday afternoon, split into 3 stages: Q1, Q2, Q3. Q1, Q2, Q3, happen in that order. So Q1 is first, where all 20 drivers take part. The 5 slowest get knocked out. Q2 then takes place with 15 drivers, and the next 5 get knocked out. And then Q3 takes place after that, where you've got 10 remaining drivers, and they set the top 10 for Sunday's Grand Prix. So all qualifying does is tell us who is going to be starting where on the grid. And as we know, that is very important. Will Buxton told us you really want to start on pole position, which is starting at the front, because then everyone else is behind you. And that's how that works. Sunday sees the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix generally lasts about 2 hours or so, depending on where you are in the world. If there's a little bit of a stoppage, sometimes there's a red flag, sometimes there's a stoppage because of the weather, can sometimes last a little bit more than 2 hours, but generally 2 hours. And it's equal to the number of laps that exceeds 305 kilometers. So all the tracks are slightly different lengths, but therefore, as long as we have enough laps to get to 305 kilometers, that is absolutely fine. There are a few exceptions to that, Monaco being the main one. Monaco, we do not do 305 kilometers because it would take 7 years to do that around Monaco. So Monaco is quite a lot shorter, but the track is also much, much slower. Now, Formula One also has sprint weekends. So the general gist is that 99% of the races you'll watch in Formula One will be just this race weekend format. The sprint weekends have come in over the last couple of seasons, and actually now there are 6 sprint weekends this season in 2023. Azerbaijan, Austria, Belgium, Qatar, United States, and Sao Paulo will all see a sprint weekend. And this basically just means that the order of things gets shaked up a little bit. A sprint is a 100-kilometer dash, so about a third the length of the Grand Prix, on a Saturday, and sets up the grid for the Sunday. And also offers some bonus points. That's the real thing when it comes to sprint races, is there are bonus points available for those drivers. Sprint weekends follow a slightly different format. Friday sees FP1 followed by a standard 1-hour qualifying session. So the normal qualifying now takes place on the Friday, setting the grid for a sprint race on the Saturday. Free practice 2 is on the Saturday, followed by the sprint race, which of course sets up the grid for Sunday. The main event, the Grand Prix, is exactly the same on Sunday as it would have been for any other weekend. So sprint weekends just add in a little bit of spice, an extra little race in there for us. In terms of the points that you can get, sprint race offers 8 points for the victor, running down to 1 point for 8th place. Whereas a Grand Prix, first place, 25 points, running down to 1 point for 10th place in the standings. Also, if you manage to finish inside of the top 10 and finish the race with the fastest lap of anybody, you get a bonus extra point. So there is 26 points available technically on a Grand Prix, and 8 points available maximum on a sprint race. So you could walk away from a Formula One weekend with 34 points if you have a perfect sprint race and Grand Prix. Most weekends, though, obviously only offer the Grand Prix points. And then finally, the rules. Don't worry about them too much. Just enjoy it. Just if you get involved in Formula One for the first time, or even if you're coming back as a really experienced fan, just enjoy it, because the rules change a lot. Nobody really knows all of the rules, and if they pretend that they do, they don't. There's hundreds of them, 2000s, there is a document for the rules by the FIA that even the FIA at times I don't think have read, because the rules seem to change depending on what the person who is in charge of that Grand Prix at that time seems to think is best. And that actually works out quite well for Formula 1. It does mean that the rules change slightly depending on every single Grand Prix, and we don't get very much consistency, but it is very fun. So therefore, don't worry about the rules. Just watch, enjoy. There's going to be pit stops. There's going to be a race. There's going to be tyres involved and flags that you'll see. But you'll kind of get it as you go along. The main rules are very, very obvious. 20 cars go around a track. The one who goes around it quickest wins. But the kind of nuances of the rules, they don't come up very often. And when they do, nobody knows what they are. And lots of people scramble to look at the rules very quickly. And then they pretend that they knew what the rules were all along, including the people who are literally in charge of the sport. Let's delve into the teams. We're going to go in order of the Constructors' Championship last season. So starting with Red Bull Racing, current Formula 1 Constructors' Champions. This is their 2023 livery. It's the same as every single other livery that they've ever done. This could be the 2013 Red Bull, and it would look exactly the same. This could be the 2007 Red Bull, and it would look exactly the same. Red Bull 2023 livery, this is just what the Red Bull car will look like forever. They really kind of nailed it once, and they were like, that'll do. The full name of Red Bull, Oracle Red Bull Racing, based in Milton Keynes. I know it's an Austrian company, but a lot of it is based in the UK. It's a little bit strange. And therefore, we kind of have technical chief as Pierre Wash, and also the team chief, Christian Horner. You're going to want to get to know Christian Horner. You'll see a lot of him. You'll see him riding horses. You'll see him tending chickens. But he is a very interesting character to have in Formula 1, and also a character that I think Formula 1 needs. He's a little bit of a foil in Formula 1 sometimes. He's the guy, the team principal, that everyone kind of likes to hate quite a lot of the time. This is the Red Bull 19 this season. It's Red Bull's 19th season in Formula 1. Power unit is technically the Honda, but it's a Red Bull powertrain. So Red Bull have just purchased Honda in terms of their powertrains. They're moving into being able to produce their own powertrains. They're also teaming up with Ford in a couple of years' time for their power unit as well. So Honda, Red Bull, Ford, it's all kind of merging into one thing at this moment in time. The first time they entered Formula 1 was in 1997. They have 5 world championships now to their name, 4 under Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, and then last season with Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. And their highest race finish is first place. They have 92 wins across many different drivers that they've had in that team over the years. Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel being the most decorated of the two. Let's delve into Max Verstappen himself then. From the Netherlands, born in Belgium, interesting, but represents the Netherlands. 77 podiums to his name, 2,011.5 points. 0.5 points is interesting. That's one of the rules. If the race doesn't quite finish and we haven't finished enough laps, we just sometimes hand out half points. And therefore, for the rest of time, Max Verstappen is likely to have 0.5 points on there. He's entered 163 Grand Prix, considering he is quite young. He's born in 1997. He is younger than I am. He is a 2-time world champion, and he's been around the block. He's kind of been in Formula 1 a little bit longer than most people think. He was fast-tracked into Formula 1 by a Red Bull. They really did think they had something special, and apparently they did, because he's won 35 Grand Prix in that time. And obviously his highest grid position, a pole position. He has many of those. Many pole positions. If we look at his stats from last season, average qualifier position 2.59. Now, his qualifying last year wasn't really what he was known for. He did get 8 pole positions over the course of 22 races and had 22 Q3 appearances, as you'd expect from a Red Bull driver. But it was really his race pace that absolutely dominated the field. An average finish of 2nd place or above. He did win 15 Grand Prix with 17 podiums. He finished 20 races, and all 20 of those races he finished in the points. 2 DNFs. He DNF'd in 2 of the first 3 races last season, which kind of added a bit of spice to the championship, but then he ended up coming in 1st place with 454 points. Interesting facts that you need to know. His fans wear orange, and they will dominate every single European Grand Prix. If you're watching a European Grand Prix and you see a man in orange, he's a Max Verstappen fan. Don't mention Lewis Hamilton around them. You will not live to tell the tale. He doesn't like interviews when he hasn't won. Loves an interview when he's winning. He loves an interview when he can talk about how great he was, how good Red Bull were. Hates an interview if he hasn't won or if he's had a little bit of a crash. Hates an interview then. He does not like it when you say Hamilton should have won in 2021. Really does not like that, especially if you work for Sky Sports and you say that at the same time. That will get you a good ban from the Red Bull side of the grid from now on. And also, if you hear Max, 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 Super, Max, Max, Super, Super, Max, 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 Super, Max, Max, Super, Super, Max, Max, you just kind of have to get involved with it. Again, he dominates a lot of the fan base. They wear orange. They'll sing at you. Just join in. It's nice. It's a good song. Moving on to Sergio Perez, his teammate, Mexican. You have to mention that he's Mexican. Podiums, 26 in his career, 1,201 points, 236 Grand Prix entered. Unfortunately, has not won a world championship in his time, but he has got 4 wins to his name now. So Sergio Perez enjoying the fact that he's moved to Red Bull and picking up a few wins along the way. Highest grid position, he now does have a pole position to his name in Formula One after the 2022 season, and he was born in 1990. In terms of his positioning last season, average qualifying 5th. Again, not really known for his qualifying, Sergio Perez. More of a racer when it comes to the Formula One side of things. And you will have drivers that are sort of stronger qualifiers versus stronger racers. Sergio Perez definitely a stronger racer than qualifier. 1 pole position in his name and 19 appearances in Q3 last year out of 22 races. Average finishing position, this is what I mean. In terms of his average qualifying, he always gained positions when it came to the races. 3.21, a couple of wins, 11 podiums in total, 19 points finishes and 3 DNFs for the Mexican over the course of the year. He ended up 3rd in the championship with 305 points, was very, very close to finishing 2nd in the championship. But Red Bull kind of messed up the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. Things that you should know about Sergio Perez. You have to mention that he is Mexican. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about Sergio Perez without mentioning that he is Mexican at some point. He is a tyre whisperer, which does mean that he is incredibly good at just making tyres last forever. Like, if this man could do 23 Grand Prix on 1 set of tyres, I think he'd be fine. Like, I think he'd genuinely be able to just carry 1 set of Pirellis throughout the entire year. You will hear him referred to as Checo rather than Perez. This is his nickname, and lots of people get confused because they think, why is he's called Sergio Perez? Where does Checo come from? Don't worry about it. Just call him Checo. Everybody calls him Checo, even though they're not mates with him. Almost lost his Formula One drive until winning a stunning race in 2020. If you haven't seen that, it's well worth a watch. One of the best races that we've had in many a year in 20, the Sakir Grand Prix, and it saved his career as Red Bull then decided, you know what, you've won a Grand Prix, come over to Red Bull. And then since then, it's been all the way up. And I think Sergio Perez has been the catalyst for Red Bull really starting to win over and over again. Max Verstappen has looked incredibly dominant since Sergio Perez has come in, and also they've won a Constructors' Championship for the first time since 8 years ago with Sergio Perez. Final thing you need to know about Sergio Perez, his dad is the best Formula One fan in the world. Just wait until the Mexican Grand Prix. You'll know exactly who his dad is, and you'll know exactly what I mean. Let's move on then. If we think about those two combined and compare the two, Max Verstappen, kind of the dominant of the two teammates in terms of qualifying and in terms of the race head-to-heads, the average qualifying position. As I said, Sergio Perez not really a qualifier by trade. 8 pole positions to 1 in terms of the 2022 season. And again, those Q3 appearances, 22 for Max Verstappen, 19 for Sergio Perez. But overall, if you look at the percentage of points scored for the team, Sergio Perez held his own. 40% of the team's overall points went to Sergio Perez. So considering how dominant Max Verstappen was, the fact that he got 15 wins over the course of the season, I think getting 40% of the team's overall points is fairly impressive from Sergio Perez. And he held his own there. If you look at the points finishes, 20 for Max Verstappen, 19 for Sergio Perez. So they always finished in the points, both of them. Highest finish, obviously both of them got wins over the course of the season. Many podiums between them as well. I think Sergio Perez held his own considering it is Max Verstappen as his teammate. Next up is Ferrari, the team in red. They always are in red, apart from sometimes when they're in yellow. And if you look at the 2023 livery, it is a stunning Ferrari car. As I said, always red. They kind of use black as their secondary color now. The Ferrari decal across the black wing, the back black wing. I really do like. Apart from the Siva on the side pod there, it's almost perfect. Almost a perfect livery. They are the longest standing Formula One team. First entry in 1950, 16 world championships, 243 races. They are the most decorated Formula One team that there has ever been. In terms of this year, they are running their own Ferrari power unit. They have the SF23 chassis. They are now headed up by Frederick Vasseur, who has come in from the Alfa Romeo team over the course of the winter. And technically, they are called Scuderia Ferrari, but you will see them referred to as just Ferrari all of the time. They are an incredibly decorated, as I said, Formula One team, but they haven't won anything since 2008. So it's interesting kind of time for Ferrari. They're still kind of on this up and down trajectory where they can't quite get back to the top of the grid. They edge ever closer. They knock on the door of championships sometimes, but they just don't quite make it a lot of the time too. In terms of the drivers, Charles Leclerc, he's from Monaco. He's got 24 podiums to his name, 103 Grand Prix entered. So about a third of the time in his Formula One career, he's been on the podium, which is very impressive considering he was also in a year that Ferrari just were abysmally bad. His highest race finish, 5 wins to his name, but he's known more of a qualifier because last season he got 9 pole positions. He averaged a qualifying position of third on the grid. And in terms of his Q3 appearances, he had 21 over the course of the 23 races. And actually, that average qualifying position is dragged down a little bit because of some engine penalties and various bits and pieces that he had over the course of the season as well. The problem is his race pace when it came to the Ferrari. I know you can blame him, his strategist, the team, etc., etc. But he did drop backwards a little bit on average when it came to the races, finishing in 3.32. 3 wins over the course of the season, 11 podiums to his name, so the same as Sergio Perez, but finished in the points 19 times as well. So him and Sergio Perez had fairly comparable seasons, I would argue. And therefore, they finished very, very close in the driver's standings as well. Managed to finish 3 points ahead of Sergio Perez to nab second place, in the championship compared to Sergio Perez's third place. Things that you should know. There was an incident with him and Max Verstappen. It will be referred to as the incident a lot of the time. And you will hear people say incident because that's how Charles Leclerc said it. Once dressed up as a banana, is cursed at his home Grand Prix in Monaco. So if he is racing in Monaco, just assume that he is going to crash at some point. Has made a mistake occasionally, a few times in his career. See, I Am Stupid and France, where he just screamed. There are a couple of mistakes in him over the course of his Formula One career, but he's trying to get better. He's trying to get better. Those mistakes will seep away. Carlos Sainz, his teammate, is from Spain, also driving for Ferrari this year. 15 podiums to his name over the course of his Formula One career. 1 win that came last season at Silverstone, the 2022 Silverstone Grand Prix, and therefore his highest grid position. Also first, because he managed to get 1 pole position at the Silverstone Grand Prix last season. His date of birth, the 1st of September. 1994 is what I was going to say. In terms of last season, had a pretty good one. Average qualifying position 3.82 is pretty good in that Ferrari. Couple of pole positions. Wait, hang on. Highest grid position 1. Pole positions 2. Oh, it's because there was a sprint race. Q3 appearances 22. Q3 appearances over the course of last season. He was very, very consistent when it came to qualifying. In the races, though, as you can see, kind of came unstuck a little bit. 6 DNFs over the course of the 2022 season. Did score points in the other 6 races, though. 9 podiums in total. That win, as I mentioned, and that grabbed him 5th place in the championship with 246 points. Things that you should know. Best mates with Lando Norris. Carlando forever. He is a smooth operator, is way too competitive when it comes to the team videos and any other sports. If you watch Drive to Survive, you'll see him angry about losing golf, angry about losing tennis. If you watched any of the Ferrari behind the scenes, you'll see the head-to-heads with him and Lando Norris, or the head-to-heads with him and Charles Leclerc, where they play little games. He's competitive. He loves it. He's a big fan of Mariah Carey and not a fan of gravel traps. is Carlos Sainz. If we look at the comparison between those two, qualifying head-to-head, Charles Leclerc edged it out, as I said, though Charles Leclerc, a much stronger qualifier than Carlos Sainz. 9 pole positions to 2 for Carlos Sainz. Race head-to-head, a little bit closer. Carlos Sainz kind of comes to life a little bit more on the Sunday in the races, and actually the race head-to-head, only 12-10. In Charles Leclerc's favour over the course of the 22 races last season. 3 wins for Charles Leclerc, 1 for Carlos Sainz, 11 podiums to 9. It was actually a lot closer than people gave Carlos Sainz credit for. I think it's just when you come down to the points, 44% of the team's points went to Carlos Sainz, whereas 56% of the team's points went to Charles Leclerc. And Charles Leclerc therefore ended up finishing second in the championship to Carlos Sainz's 5th. But again, if you took 3 DNFs away from Carlos Sainz, so he managed to get 3 more points finishes, I think he'd be a lot closer in terms of that percentage, maybe 46, 47% of the team's overall points. And therefore, I think it would come down to a little bit less of a margin between these two. Moving on to Mercedes. Mercedes, the third team that we're going to quickly go through. Mercedes 2023 livery, it's black. To save weight, yes, but also because apparently that's what they're allowed to do. Toto Wolff coming out and just being like, yeah, it's black. That's what we planned on it to be. Promise. And it's definitely not because they just want to expose as much carbon fiber as humanly possible. If we come into the team itself, Petronas AMG Formula One team, Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team. What did I say? They're based in Brackley. They are signed up by Toto Wolff. He is the team chief. He is absolutely the heartbeat of Mercedes. He will go into every single session and will just do everything that he possibly can to get Mercedes any kind of edge. They're running the W14 this season. They have a Mercedes power unit. They do run the powertrains for most teams on the grid. And their first entry was 1970, but then they went away from the sport for a very long time and then came back. Highest finish. They have 116 Grand Prix victories and 8 World Championships to their name. They have been absolutely dominant since their return to Formula One. Lewis Hamilton is their kind of number one driver still at this point, although arguably is coming under fire from his teammate George Russell. But Lewis Hamilton, 191 podiums to his name out of 310 Grand Prix. So more often than not, he is on the podium. In fact, more than half of the Grand Prix he has entered, he is on the podium. He has 7 World Championships to his name, 103 Grand Prix victories. So again, about a third of the Grand Prix that he enters, he wins. And his highest grid position, obviously, first. He has many pole positions, over 100 pole positions to his name, although last season didn't manage to get any, and also didn't manage to get any wins last season. So those pole percentages and also win percentages dropping a little bit over the course of the 2022 season. Average qualifying position, 6.41. That was dragged down by a couple of times where he didn't manage to get into Q3, to be honest with you, though. Average finishing position was 4.75, though. Did manage to move forwards a lot of the time when it came to the Grand Prix. 9 podiums, most of them coming in the second half of the season when Mercedes kind of got it together. 2 DNFs, which was quite surprising considering Mercedes were incredibly consistent over the course of the year, and 19 points finishes. Only finished outside of the points once when he did finish the Grand Prix, although that was only good for 6th place in the championship. So at the top 6, he actually was the bottom of those 6. Things that you do need to know. Everyone will say he's going to retire apart from him, which is quite important because he kind of needs to decide when he's going to retire. He does wear jewelry, which the FIA absolutely hate. He has a Brazilian. Moving to Mercedes definitely wasn't a mistake. Lots of people will say he was at McLaren, and at the time he decided to move to Mercedes, it was a huge gamble and a huge mistake. It turned out it wasn't. He won 6 World Championships. His tyres are gone. He gets in there, Lewis, and he still rises a lot of the time. Then we have George Russell, Mercedes, United Kingdom as well. 9 podiums to his name so far in his Formula One career. One of those with Williams, which we'll delve into a little bit later on. Highest race finish, that 1 win in Brazil, again in the 2022 season. And his highest grid position, again, first place. Has a pole position to his name because he picked up 1 pole position and 1 win last year. Obviously, coming into this, average position in terms of qualifying, again, a little bit further down, 6.45, but 19 Q3 appearances. In terms of wins, podiums, he got 1 win, 8 podiums last season, and again, managed to move forward more often than not. I think that was the thing with Mercedes. They didn't qualify overly well, but they did move forwards quite often when it came to the races, and 1 DNF over the course of the season. That came at Silverstone, where he destroyed Zhou Guanyu. And then he managed to finish 4th in the championship, 275 points. Things that you need to know about George Russell: he will use language as offensive of blimey and crikey quite often. It's kind of jarring when he comes on the radio, and it's just so rude a lot of the time. Loves a topless photo shoot. If you want to see George Russell topless, head to his Instagram. There's more than enough photos of him topless on there. He got a podium in a Williams and cried. You will see that picture quite often. Loves a PowerPoint. That is facts. And he is the type of guy. See phone. Here we go. So I wrote down some of the George Russell is the type of guys, because he is the type of guy to do various things. And I think it's a very interesting sort of subgenre of George Russell, to be honest with you. George Russell is the type of guy to ask the waiter, what's the damage, before they hand him the check. George Russell is the type of guy to say, I'm going to squeeze right by you when trying to get through a crowd. George Russell is the type of guy to say, I won't get far without these, when he comes back and he's forgotten his car keys. George Russell is the sort of person at all times. George Russell is the sort of person to tweet. Wait, what? To look at all the George Russell as the sort of person to tweets and confirm that he actually does do all of that stuff. George Russell is the type of guy who slaps his thigh and says, right, before getting up to leave your house. George Russell is the type of guy to say, how's the weather up there, when he sees someone taller than him. He's just a lovely man, is George Russell, and we like him. Then we have the comparison between the two. George Russell actually out-qualifying Lewis Hamilton last season, but the race head-to-heads do go in Lewis Hamilton's favor. No, wait, I've got these two the wrong way around. Oh dear, sorry. Imagine George Russell and Lewis Hamilton's faces are the opposite way round on this slide. So George Russell was out-qualified by Lewis Hamilton, but outscored Lewis Hamilton in terms of the races. That makes sense, because George Russell got 53% of the team's points to 47%. It was very, very close between the two of them, and will continue to be very, very close in 2023, I am sure. Alpine is an interesting one, because they've got a brand new driver in Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. Here's their 2023 livery, apart from the first 2 races where they're running an all-pink car. So keep an eye out for the all-pink car, and then it will change into this car for the other 21 races this season. They are the BWT Alpine Formula 1 team. They are headed up by Otmar. You'll get to know him. He's an incredible character. The chassis is the A523. They're powered by Renault, and they are the only team powered by Renault on the entire grid. They have 2 world championships to their name, thanks to Fernando Alonso, a man that is no longer really liked by Alpine. And their highest race finish, they have 21 wins to their name. Let's talk about Esteban Ocon first. He's been there a little bit longer. He's an Alpine driver. He's also from France, which helps out because they are a French team. 2 podiums to his name over the course of his Formula 1 career. He's entered 111 Grand Prix, 364 points in that time. He does, though, have a win to his name, the Hungarian Grand Prix. It was an astonishing race. Average qualifying position last year was not great, actually outside of the top 10 more often than not. 11 Q3 appearances, which meant that there was also 11 Q2 or Q1 appearances in total. 7 of those were Q2 appearances, and therefore was not the best qualifier. And I think that might let him down a little bit this season, because his teammate is known for being quite a good qualifier. But in terms of the races, he did move forwards. He kind of made a lot of progress when it came to race pace. Average finishing position, 8.15. Highest finish was 4th last year, which is very, very impressive considering how strong the top 6 drivers were. 17 points finishes from 22 Grand Prix, 20 if you count the 2 DNFs that he had over the course of the year. That finished him 8th in the championship, almost best of the rest, and he picked up 53% of his team's points. Things that you should know about Esteban Ocon: he won a race in Hungary, and people will reference that win in Hungary all of the time, because it is his only win in Formula 1. He is very long. He's a very tall, gangly looking man. He doesn't get on with Pierre Gasly, doesn't get on with Fernando Alonso, doesn't get on with Sergio Perez, because they've all been his teammates at some point, and they all dislike him now. And he loves to crop Pierre Gasly out of pictures, which is interesting, because they're now teammates. Also, Esteban Ocon, compared to Fernando Alonso, the man who made the switch over this season, that's what that arrow means. He's gone now to Aston Martin, as you can see in the picture. Qualifying head-to-head, Fernando Alonso came out on top, but in terms of the races, Esteban Ocon came out on top. Although, if you look at it, Fernando Alonso did have 6 DNFs over the course of last season to 2 DNFs for Esteban Ocon. Finished 11 points behind him, but it was very, very close between the two. And I think really what we can say is Fernando Alonso was the better of the two drivers, even though Esteban Ocon does outscore him in pretty much everything. Points finishes, top 15 finishes, etc., etc. Top 6 finishes, highest finish. Everything kind of leans towards Esteban Ocon. But if you kind of know, you know. Fernando Alonso was that little bit better. Pierre Gasly is the new Alpine driver. 3 podiums to his name out of 108 race starts. He also has 1 win. He won in a Monza with AlphaTauri. And also has a 2nd place in qualifying once, which was sublime to see. He's born in 1996, exactly like me. And me and Pierre Gasly are basically the same guy. When it comes to qualifying, he is exceptionally good, but had a bit of a down year last year. He was in the AlphaTauri car, hence the colour scheme on Pierre Gasly's stats here. So we have to take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt compared to Esteban Ocon's, because he was in a much, much slower car. Average qualifying position, 12.5, 7 Q3 appearances, 8 Q2 appearances. So again, not a vintage year in terms of qualifying for Pierre Gasly, but that is generally his strength, although he did move forward a little bit when it came to the races, although not too much. Highest finish, managed to get a 5th place, managed to score points 6 times over the course of the year, and only 3 DNFs, one of which was his fault and the other couple weren't really. Therefore, he finished 14th in the championship, picked up 23 points, which was 66% of his team's points, and we'll get to AlphaTauri a little bit later. Things that you should know about Pierre Gasly, though. Won a race in Monza. Again, they will come up and they will talk about that every single time. Absolute best friends with Yuki, although a terrible singer. Penalty points collector. Does have 10 penalty points coming into this 2023 season, meaning that if he picks up 2 more penalty points, then he will lose out on a Grand Prix, which would be very interesting to see if the FIA actually go with that and hand out Pierre Gasly a couple of penalty points, especially because he crops Esteban Ocon out of pictures as well, and therefore it could get a little bit tense between it. And also Pierre Gasly did like this, so you should definitely leave a like down below as well, because Pierre already has. Also, moving into McLaren, my team of Formula One, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri is what I'm trying to say. McLaren's 2023 livery, orange, blue, a little bit too much black for me, but a nice livery nonetheless. Then you can definitely still tell it's a McLaren car, right? Still got that papaya orange going to it. They are the McLaren Formula One team. They're based in Woking. Andrea Stella is going to be their team chief this season, although last season it was Andre Seidel, who's now moved to Alfa Romeo, but is technically part of the Audi group. We'll get to them later. It gets very complicated. They're running the MCL 60. Their power unit is Mercedes, and they first entered the sport in 1966. Again, they are one of the kind of forefathers of Formula One at this point. They kind of keep themselves in that Formula One-ness for a very, very long time, and they have stuck around a little bit like Ferrari. Lando Norris is their kind of main man moving forward this season, especially because he is now their most experienced Formula One driver. He's had a lot of experienced teammates in the past, but now he's kind of stepping up in his 5th season in Formula One to be that man who is heading up the McLaren team. Got 6 podiums to his name over the course of his career, 82 Grand Prix that he has started. No World Championships, unfortunately. A 2nd place finish is the highest that he has. One in Monza, where Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate at the time, went on to win that Grand Prix. And he was born in 1999. If we look at Lando Norris last season, he was best of the rest in terms of his championship position. He finished in 7th place, 122 points, which was 77% of the team's points. He absolutely dominated his teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, and we'll get to him in a second. Average finishing position, 7.8. Average qualifying position, 8th. So again, he was, 7th or 8th place pretty much every single time around. He was guaranteed to basically be in the top 10, 16 Q3 appearances, 17 points finishes. He was sublime over the course of the 2022 season. Best mates with Carlos, again, Carlando forever. Will laugh in a press conference for no real reason apart from just he will laugh. Leaks car launch dates on the regular. He loves a leak, does Lando Norris. He also leaked the fact that Oscar Piastri was going to be his teammate for the 2023 season. He just can't keep a secret. If you want to have Lando Norris in your team, don't tell him anything important because he will tell the press. Regularly picked on by other drivers on the grid. He is part of Quadrant. He is broken. And Let's Go Lando is also a very good song if you want to get involved. He did destroy Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo is no longer on the Formula 1 grid, hence the little no longer on there. 20 qualifying sessions he beat Daniel Ricciardo in. Daniel Ricciardo only beat him twice over the course of the entire year. The average qualifying position was, a difference of 4. That is massive. The Q3 appearances, 16-7. The race head-to-heads was even 16-6. It was just an absolute bloodbath when it came to these two last year. And Daniel Ricciardo just did get smashed by Lando Norris pretty much every single Grand Prix. Ended up with 37 points, Daniel Ricciardo, 23%. And Lando Norris has therefore become this kind of driver that is expected now to do very, very well. When Daniel Ricciardo came into the team, it was expected that Lando Norris was still going to be developing, still going to kind of be growing behind Daniel Ricciardo, who was likely to be the main driver in the team. That is no longer the case because Oscar Piastri coming in alongside Lando Norris, replacing Daniel Ricciardo, is a rookie. No points in Formula 1, no podiums, no Grand Prix entered. He's Australian. He's born in 2001. He is a rookie, but he is very, very highly sought after rookie. He won the 2019 Formula Renault Cup. He won the 2020 Formula 3 Championship with Prima. He won the 2021 Formula 2 Championship, again with Prima, and then was an Alpine test driver for 2022. He's come up through the ranks very, very quickly, but also he's won everything along the way. So it's not like he's been, fast-tracked all the way through. He's been fast-tracked because he's kept winning everything. You can't not give him a place in the next series up if he's just already beaten it. Alpine are not a fan of him anymore. He gained a lot of Twitter followers in the summer of 2022. And if you do want to contact him, please contact Mark Webber for any future inquiries. Let's move on to Alfa Romeo, a team that I'm very, very excited for this 2023 season. They have a stunning livery. Absolutely pucker livery. Really, really enjoy this livery for the 2023 season. And actually on the back of the back wing, they've got the Italian flag. It is just very, very nice. I'm not looking forward to the fact that Alfa Romeo, this is their final year in Formula 1. So they're no longer going to be the Alfa Romeo Formula 1 team. They're going to go back to Sauber. Sauber are the team that are kind of behind the scenes of Alfa Romeo. So Alfa Romeo, it's a bit of a weird one. In Formula 1, if you are a sponsor or a car manufacturer, you can kind of just come along and be like, do you want the team to be named after us? And the team who actually make the car, which is Sauber, based in Switzerland, they're like, yeah, I guess if you pay. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll pay. And then Sauber make the car. They do everything behind the scenes. Then Alfa Romeo come along and they go, here's some money. There's the Alfa Romeo badge on the front of it. So Alfa Romeo are going to be leaving at the end of this 2023 season, but they are going to be leaving behind some good drivers. First of all, Valtteri Bottas, technically part of the Sauber driver team. He is from Finland. He has 67 podiums to his name, 200 Grand Prix exactly, and 10 race wins in that time. He is a very, very good driver and very highly sought after in this midfield pack ever since leaving Mercedes a couple of years ago. The average qualifying position for him last season was 11.68. He had 8 Q3 appearances, a lot of those coming towards the beginning of the season. The Alfa Romeo car did dip off towards the end of the year, although Valtteri Bottas did manage to hold on to a top 10 finish. So he finished 10th in the championship with 49 points, which was 89% of the points. He did absolutely dominate his teammate Zhou Guanyu. In terms of his race finishes, he finished his 5th place over the course of the season. What was that? The fourth race in, something like that. He finished in 5th, was very, very good. 9 points finishes and 3 DNFs over the course of 2022. Stuff you should know about him. He's everyone's new favorite driver. So at Mercedes, he was kind of known for being a bit boring. No one really liked him because he was a bit slower than Lewis Hamilton. And therefore, he just kind of became this kind of like meh driver. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Valtteri Bottas, he's there. But what does he do? Now he's everyone's favourite driver again. He's grown a mullet and a mustache, and all of a sudden, he's everyone's favourite. Also, he's Finnish, which does help because always have to have a Finn on the grid, and he is wonderful to have on the grid. He bears it all without you really asking him to. See picture attached. And he hates hearing from James Vowles. Just absolutely does not want to hear from him, which I think is why he won't go to Williams now, because James Vowles is now the team principal at Williams. And Valtteri Bottas just hates the sound of his voice. Then we move into his teammate, Zhou Guanyu, also technically a Sauber driver, although part of the Alfa Romeo team. Very complicated. He's from China. He's 6 points to his name in 22 Grand Prix. His highest race finish in 8th place. That actually came in his first ever Grand... No, it didn't. It came later on in the season. I was going to say it came in his first Grand Prix, but it didn't. He got points in his first Grand Prix, is what I was going to say. Because he did manage to finish in the points 3 times last year, the highest of those finishes being 8th. He did have 5 DNFs last year, a lot of them not his fault. Reliability of that Alfa Romeo car was not great. Again, if you look at his average qualifying, not amazing. Couple of Q3 appearances towards the middle of the season, but more often than not in Q2. So not terrible in terms of his performances in qualifying, but also not amazing. It was kind of a bit 50-50. Finished 18th in the championship. Not bad for a rookie season, but only scored 11% of his team's points. Things that you should know about him. He was the 2022 Rookie of the Year. He's the best dressed driver on the grid in the 2022 season, and no commentators can pronounce his name. You will hear Zhu Guanyu quite a lot, or Zhou Guanshu, which is not his name. It is Zhou Guanyu, but there we are. And then in terms of the qualifying head-to-head, not as far apart as you'd imagine, considering it was his rookie season. 14-8 in favour of Valtteri Bottas, 11.68 to 14.41. I think it was just those Q3 appearances really did drag up the average qualifying position for Valtteri Bottas. Race head-to-head, 15-7. Again, though, he was a rookie, struggling to kind of adapt to Formula One, especially because he had a couple more DNFs over the course of the season that weren't his fault. No top 6 finishes, although he did finish in the points 3 times, we said, although Valtteri Bottas finished in the points 9 times. Yeah, reliability of the Alfa Romeo Ferrari power unit wasn't great over the course of the 2022 season. 8 DNFs in total for the team, but they did manage to pick up 55 points, which got them 6th in the championship, although it was exactly the same number of points as Aston Martin, with Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. Their 2023 livery is the same as the one before. Aston Martin going with the copy and paste approach. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That kind of approach to their 2023 livery. They are the Aston Martin Armco Cognizant Formula One team. It's a mouthful, but you'll get used to it. They're based in Silverstone in the United Kingdom. Mike Crack, again, is their team principal. You'll get used to it. And Andrew Green is their technical chief. They are powered by Mercedes. They entered first in 2018 because they took over from Racing Point, who took over from Force India, which is quite a long and arduous thing. Oh. In terms of their team, they've got Lance Stroll, who's their kind of leading driver now, technically, because he's been there longer than his teammate Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin comes from Canada. 3 podiums to his name in 122 Grand Prix, 194 points in that time. He has finished 3rd 3 times, so he's never got higher than 3rd place on the podium, but he has got a pole position to his name. Not last season. He did manage to get into Q3 a few times, 3 times over the course of the year, but his average qualifying position was not great. 15.77. The Aston Martin car last year was bad when it came to qualifying, really was quite bad. But in terms of the race pace, was quite good. So you can see he actually got the most overtakes in the 2022 season on track. He ended up getting 11.21 as his average finishing position. Finished in 8 points positions and therefore finished 6th as his highest finish. 3 DNFs over the course of the year. A couple of those were his fault. He does like a crash occasionally, does Lance Stroll. Finished 15th in the championship with 18 points, which for me, a bit disappointing considering. If we compare him to his teammate in a second. Stuff that you should know, though, he has broken both of his 2 wrists. So both of his wrists are now broken. Monaco TV director can't get enough of him. Just absolutely loves to cut to Lance Stroll. His dad owns the team, which is why he will just never, ever lose his seat at Aston Martin. His dad literally owns the team. He's a bit like the kid when you're growing up at football and their dad is the manager. Say no more. Everyone's second favourite Canadian. And if you compare him to Sebastian Vettel, who unfortunately retired at the end of last season, and it was close. It was fairly close, but Sebastian Vettel was better over the course of the year. In terms of qualifying, beat him out 13-7. I should say that Sebastian Vettel didn't take part in 2 Grand Prix at the beginning of the season, so that's why these are out of 20 rather than out of 22. It was actually exactly 10-10 in terms of the race head-to-heads. But if you look at the average finishing position, Sebastian Vettel just kind of leaning towards the points a little bit more often. 10 points finishes to 8 points finishes. Twice in the top 6 with Sebastian Vettel, whereas once for Lance Stroll. Top 15 finishes. Lance Stroll actually gets the better of his teammate, but that's because often when they both finished outside of the points, Lance Stroll would just finish that 1 position ahead of Sebastian Vettel. They both had 3 DNFs, so they did have quite comparable seasons. And again, if you look at that, 2/3 of the team's points went to Sebastian Vettel. So a lot more expected from Lance Stroll in this 2023 season, if you asked me. His new teammate, though, Fernando Alonso, is a controversial character. You'll love him or you'll hate him. He's from Spain. He's got 98 podiums to his name, 2 world championships. He's a double world championship winner, although it was a very, very long time ago now that he won those championships. 32 race wins to his name. But again, it's been a very, very long time since he has won a Grand Prix. Last season, he was with Alpine, hence the colour of these statistics, but in terms of qualifying was very, very good. 8.27 is average qualifying position. Again, pretty much guaranteed to be in there. Only missed out on Q3 4 times over the course of the season, and when he did miss out, he still got through to Q2 those 3 times, so only missed out on Q2 once over the course of the entire Grand Prix season. Formula 1 season even. In terms of his races, 8.5 his average position finishing the Grand Prix. So it did drop back a little bit on average, maybe a little bit quicker in qualifying last year, but it's very marginal between those two. Highest finish, 5th place last season, finished inside the points 13 times. So again, more often than not, finished in the points, especially considering you had 6 DNFs there. So of the 16 Grand Prix that he actually finished, he also picked up 13 points finishes. So that was very, very impressive. He did finish in 9th place in the championship, although that feels unjust. And if you ask him, he should have finished 3rd, maybe. He picked up 81 points, which was 47% of the team's points. He does what he wants, says what he wants, loves a little chat with the FIA. Age is just a number to this man. He really doesn't know how old he is. 83% of his body fat is made up of neck, hates GP2 engines. It's all a yoke, El Plan. And then when it comes to Haas, we have to then delve into what's going on at Haas and how they're moving into this 2023 season, because they're also moving into a new driver pairing with this brand new car, the Haas team. They've gone back to black a little bit. They were very successful when they had a black car, and then they almost went bankrupt when they had a black car. And then they had a white car for a bit where they weren't very good. Now they've gone back to a black car, hoping they will kind of boost them back up to where they were when they first had a black car. They're now the MoneyGram Haas Formula One team. They're based in the United States. They are an American Formula One team. Their team principal, Gunther Steiner, is the main character of Formula One, and they run a Ferrari power unit. They first entered Formula One in 2016. They are the babies of the Formula One grid because they didn't take over from anybody else. They came in as their own team in 2016, and they've been around the block. Their highest finish is a 4th place, and it was Kevin Magnussen, this man here. Haas Formula One team. He's from Denmark. He's got 1 podium to his name in his Formula One career. He has entered 142 Grand Prix. He's finished 2nd in a Grand Prix, so incredibly close to winning a race. And as I said, that highest grid position, 4th place. Last season, had a pretty good one in the Haas car. Was very, very good in qualifying. Average position in terms of qualifying was 12.36. Got through to Q3 9 times last year, picking up 1 pole position. A pole position in Brazil. It was a little bit lucky. But also, you got to be there. You got to do it. You got to put the lap time in. And therefore, I really respect it. Kevin Magnussen doing the business for Haas in Brazil. Then it came to the races. As you'll see, a little bit backwards in terms of his races compared to qualifying. He had a few incidents. He loves an incident on turn 1. He loves a black and orange flag. He doesn't enjoy having a front wing on his Haas car, and therefore that meant that he only finished in the points 6 times with 5 DNFs over the course of the season. So even though he qualified incredibly well and looked really, really quick in that Haas car, he did have a few issues for himself. Picked up 25 points over the course of the season, which, considering he picked up 10 of those in the first Grand Prix, where he finished in 5th place, his highest finish of the season. 13th place in the championship. Maybe you could argue he should have finished a little bit higher, but he's got this year to rectify that. Podium on his debut in 2014, and never again. That one podium that he has picked up was on his debut in Formula 1, and he's never really got that close to a podium again. Gunther Steiner's long-lost son, him and Gunther Steiner, he's basically the only driver who has ever really done anything at Haas. He is their best driver statistically ever. And therefore, him and Gunther Steiner just really love each other. And as soon as they needed a Formula 1 driver, he just kind of came running back to Gunther Steiner and then had an incredible 2022 season. It really was lovely to see. He enjoys his balls being sucked, which is very interesting because Mick Schumacher is now gone from the team. So Mick Schumacher will no longer be sucking his balls. And in qualifying, he absolutely smashed Mick Schumacher 16-6. He also actually lost out in terms of the races head-to-head. 8 race finishes higher than Mick Schumacher. Because again, even though he qualified really well, loves an incident, does Kevin Magnussen. Loves kind of clipping his front wing off, causing himself some damage, not quite being as high as you'd expect when it came to his race finishes, although his average race finish was still higher. In those 8 races, he did beat Mick Schumacher. He beat Mick Schumacher by a long, long margin. Has a top 6 finish, so does Mick Schumacher, but had 6 points finishes to Mick Schumacher's 2 points finishes over the course of the year, even though he had 5 DNFs to Mick Schumacher's 2 DNFs over the course of the season. And as I said, finished in 13th, whereas Mick Schumacher finished in 17th. But Mick Schumacher is no longer around, because Nico Hülkenberg is Hülkenback, the German driver coming back into Formula 1. He has 3 race finishes in 4th place. And that'll be a thing from now on. His highest grid position, 1st place. He does have a pole position to his name, but not a podium. No podium for Nico Hülkenberg, which is a shame, a real shame. He is Hülkenback, though. He is not a rookie coming into this season like the other 3 drivers that are coming onto the Formula 1 grid. He joined back in 2010 for the first time with Williams. He's driven for teams like Sauber, Force India, which are now Aston Martin, as I mentioned before, and Renault before he had 3 seasons as a test driver and reserve driver. He's known as being incredibly reliable and bottling a podium. As I said, he's finished in 4th 3 times. Of those, probably should have got a podium at least once, just once. Things that you should know: his hair is never not absolutely perfect. I don't know what it is. Whenever you see Nico Hülkenberg, his hair immaculate. I don't know who does his hair, but they've nailed it. He's a super sub that can just do a job for anyone. Comes into any team, looks reliable, looks moderately quick in any car. If Daniel Ricciardo does see Nico Hülkenberg, he will scream his name, and luckily enjoys sucking balls. Then moving into AlphaTauri, they've got a new driver lineup too for this season. Yuki Tsunoda, though, been around the block. This is their car for this season. Let's not look at it for too long. It's disgusting. Then we have the AlphaTauri team. They're actually based in Italy, considering they are owned by the Red Bull team. So they are powered by Red Bull, and Red Bull have a big stake in the AlphaTauri team. They use it as a way to promote a fashion brand. That is what AlphaTauri is. They are headed up by Franz Tost. They first entered in 1985, although they've gone through a few iterations since then. They haven't been AlphaTauri for that entire time. They were Toro Rosso beforehand. beforehand, again, headed up by Red Bull. And they do have a race win to their name, a couple of race wins. Sebastian Vettel got a race win in a Toro Rosso, and so did Pierre Gasly, the man we talked about before when he moved to Alpine. Technically, again, still part of the Toro Rosso setup, even though it's called Alpine, the academy is still Red Bull, Toro Rosso. It's very strange. The country he is from is Japan. 44 points to his name. No podiums as of yet for Yuki Tsunoda in his couple of seasons in Formula 1. Although he does have a 4th place finish, which is very, very impressive considering the 2 seasons that he's been in have been very, very competitive. He was born in the year 2000. Not much has changed, but we live underwater. That's the year 3000. Yuki Tsunoda's qualifying, not great last season. 5 Q3 appearances. Did get through to Q2 moderately often. 10 Q2 appearances. Average finish in terms of the races, 13.6. Highest finish was 7th place last season. And did get 4 points finishes, but only ended up finishing with 12 points overall, which finished him 16th in the championship. It was a little bit of a disappointing year for AlphaTauri. He got fast-tracked into Formula 1, though. Still, people are very, very excited by Yuki Tsunoda because he did do Formula 4, 3, 2, 1 in 4 years. He spent 1 year in each category and was fast-tracked into Formula 1 by Red Bull. He wants to own a restaurant at some point. He's not too worried about being a Formula 1 world champion, but he does want to own a restaurant. Just loves food, loves gaming, and hates training, even to the point where he said, when I have workouts, it ruins my whole day. And there are rumors going around, I don't know whether you guys have heard this, but I've heard it. There are rumors going around that he is Pierre Gasly's new girlfriend. And to be honest with you, I could see that happening. And also, he is a fan of the F word, let's just say, on the radio. If you're of a younger disposition, maybe don't listen to Yuki Tsunoda's radios. The language is not for you. Pierre Gasly was his teammate last year, so we can compare the two. If we look at Pierre Gasly, did manage to beat him in the races and qualifying, although Pierre Gasly, the much more experienced driver of the two, picked up 23 points to Yuki Tsunoda's 12. And I will say that Yuki Tsunoda did get better and better over the course of the season. He did generally kind of get quicker and quicker and quicker, and was closing the gap to Pierre Gasly towards the end of the year, but Pierre Gasly still just edged it statistically over the entire season. Average qualifying position, not quite there. Again, close to Pierre Gasly, 7-5 in terms of those Q3 appearances. Race head-to-heads, 14-8. Top 6 finishes, 1-0. Points finishes, 6-4. Like, he was always just that tiny little bit off, that margin away from Pierre Gasly. And therefore, he got 1/3 of the team's points, whereas Pierre Gasly got 2/3 of the team's points. Because Pierre Gasly has been replaced, though, by Nick de Vries. Again, technically now a Toro Rosso Red Bull driver from the Netherlands, like Max Verstappen. 2 points in his Formula 1 career, but he's only entered 1 Grand Prix. So he's 1 for 1. If he's going to keep up that 100% record, it'd be very impressive. Highest race finish, 9th. Picked up those 2 points. Highest grid position, 8th. Again, only entered 1 Grand Prix. So all of those statistics a little bit kind of swayed in one direction. Was born in 1995. He's a little bit old for a rookie. 28 years old now, Nick de Vries. And often we see Formula 1 drivers kind of come in around the 18, 19, 20, 21 mark. But he's a little bit old. But that's because he was in the same Formula 2 season as George Russell, Lando Norris, Alex Albon. But he didn't quite manage to actually sort of step up. So they all took the step up at the same time, right? Charles Leclerc came through the year before, then George Russell, Norris, Albon all went through at the same time into Formula 1. Nick de Vries just kind of lagged behind that little bit. And whilst he did lag behind, he just went and won some other championships. He won Formula 2 the season after in 2019. And then he also won the Formula E championship in 2020 to 2021. He got points for Williams in Monza last year. That's the only race that we can say he has taken part in Formula 1. He managed to get points. So you got handed to him. Things that you should know about Nick de Vries. He will drive for literally anyone. In 2022, he managed to get a drive at Mercedes, Aston Martin, Williams, and the AlphaTauri team. So 4 of the 10 teams he drove for last season in free practice sessions or testing sessions. He will be linked to every single Formula 1 team after 1 solid drive in Monza. So he had that 1-point scoring race in Monza. He then got linked to a seat at Alpine, Alfa Romeo, Haas, AlphaTauri, even Mercedes. He was just linked to every single team on the grid, and he does not give strong financial advice, does Nick de Vries. finally then, rounding up our 10 teams, and the final team we need to talk about in this massive guide to Formula One is Williams. They have a 2023 livery. Look at that Duracell branding. Isn't that just perfect? It is. Then we have Williams as a team themselves. Again, they're kind of one of the old schools. So we've got Ferrari, McLaren. You could then throw Williams in there as one of the old school, old hat Formula One teams. They've been around the block for a very, very long time. Entered in 1978. They've won 9 world championships in that time. If you ask my dad, all my dad ever says about Williams is, back in my day, they were winning everything. That's how long ago it was where Williams were winning stuff. Technically, they don't have a technical chief at the moment. Their chassis is still not named at this moment in time, or at least I couldn't find the name of their chassis for this season. But James Vowles has come in as a team boss, and they did need a team boss after they lost out on their team boss from last season. So James Vowles has come in from Mercedes, moved across. They do have 114 wins in Formula One. Like, they are known for being this kind of historic giant of Formula One that has fallen quite a long way. In terms of their drivers, Alex Albon, he's from Thailand. He's got 2 podiums to his name. He used to drive for Red Bull back in the day. And Grand Prix entered 59. He had a few seasons away from Formula One, then kind of came back and has bounced around the grid quite a few times in his career so far. He's finished in 3rd a couple of times, and also has a 4th place in terms of his qualifying as well to kind of shout about. But that was not at Williams. Last season, it wasn't terrible considering how bad the Williams car was. Average qualifying position of 16th, around about there, 15.57. 1 Q3 appearance over the course of the entire year. Kind of getting through to Q2 was a real big deal. 7 Q2 appearances overall. Average finish, though, really impressive. 12.71. Finished 9th in a Grand Prix, finished 3 times in the points, and picked up 4 points over the course of the season. Only 4 DNFs, had a really strong drive considering where he was last year. Also picked up 50% of the team's points. Things that you should know, his hair color is to be decided. We're not sure what he's going to be for the season yet. He is -1 appendix, and he also doesn't care about pit stops. They just seem to slow him down. He's not really a fan of any of them, and he's the Williams team's hairdresser. He was Nicholas Latifi's teammate last season. An interesting thing at the bottom there, the percentage of the team's points, 50% to Alex Albon, 25% to Nicholas Latifi, because those 2 points that Nick De Vries picked up, that AlphaTauri man that I talked about, yeah, he picked up 25% of Williams' points last season as well. If we look at the qualifying head-to-head, 19-2. Alex Albon did miss out on a Grand Prix, that Grand Prix that Nick De Vries did take part in. Therefore, these are all out of 21, these statistics, for Alex Albon, and out of 22 for Nicholas Latifi. So you kind of give Nicholas Latifi a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. He's had an extra Grand Prix. And Alex Albon managed to qualify 15.57. Nicholas Latifi 18.59. They both have 1 Q3 appearance though. So Nicholas Latifi kind of holding his own there. If we look at the race head-to-head, 16-5 in terms of the races that they had together. And again, Nick De Vries picked up points in that race, so that's sort of 17-5, isn't it? 12.71 average finish to 15.59 for Nicholas Latifi. And you got to assume like 2 or 3 drivers don't finish a Grand Prix, so not amazing. Highest finish, 9th place for both of them. Top 6 finishes, absolutely not. 3 points finishes for Alex Albon and 1 points finish for Nicholas Latifi. Finished in the top 15 6 times, which is fairly impressive. Alex Albon did it half of the season, 11 out of the 21 races that he had. 4 DNFs for Alex Albon, 5 DNFs for Nicholas Latifi. Although, as I said, Nicholas Latifi has been replaced by the American Logan Sargent. Comes into Williams this season. Again, a complete rookie, so no real statistics to show you, although he was born in 2001. Things that you'll kind of maybe know him from, or you've maybe spotted him. He did battle incredibly well with Piastri in Formula 3 during 2020 season. It was Piastri, Pourchaire, and Sargent all kind of going for the title. And I think it's quite nice that Piastri and him are kind of having their rookie seasons in Formula One at the same time as well. There's kind of parallels. It's only just now we need Porsche to come in, and then all three of them would have made it all the way from this battle in Formula 3 in 2020 to now being on the Formula One grid altogether. He did have to stay in Formula 3 though, even though he had an incredible season, and Oscar Piastri obviously went on to go and win Formula 2 the next season. He kind of got stuck in Formula 3 for a little while because he had lack of financial backing. He wasn't quite able to take that step up into Formula 2 because of the finances behind him, but he did get picked up by Williams as their junior driver. They allowed him to go into Formula 2 last season, where he finished 4th in the championship, and his main strength really is qualifying. I'm very much looking forward to Logan Sargent qualifying this season, seeing what he can do. Stuff that you should know, the more I look at him, the more I feel like he's a robot created by Formula 1, and to be this American person and be as American as possible, just as Formula 1 is breaking into the US market to sell the whole, look guys, an American in Formula 1, he's just like you thing. That really does give me a vibe. Just look at his eyes. There's something about it. There's something not quite sure. That is the end. That is all of the teams, all of the drivers that we need to talk about in terms of this 2023 season for Formula 1. A little bit of a look back into 2022 and moving forward into 2023. Thank you guys. Have fun. Like and subscribe. I really enjoyed that actually. Felt like I went through fairly swiftly, but what a time we had. What a time we had. And as I said, thank you. Have fun. Enjoy the 2023 Formula 1 season. I am going to go now because I'm ill and want to sleep. But I will be back tomorrow for Bahrain qualifying and also for the race on Sunday. So if you don't have anyone to watch the race with, come along. There's going to be lots of us. We're all going to watch the race together. I'll have the statistics up for you. I'll kind of talk you through what's happening when, and we'll really enjoy all the races together. I can't unsee that look in his eyes now. Exactly. It's just, there's something about, there's something about his eyes. The more I look at him, I was making this PowerPoint. I had to look at him, and then I was like, there's just something not quite human there. But there we are. Thank you very much for watching. Yeah, I'm going to go and have a sleep, and then I'm going to be back banging in form for Bahrain next season. If you haven't checked out my 2023 predictions, I've linked in the description my championship predictions for the Drivers' Championship. My predictions for the Constructors' Championship are also out as well. Check out those two videos. I put in quite a bit of effort into them, so that'd be very nice if you could leave a like on them. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're heading for 20k this year. I've decided that is going to be my goal for the 2023 season, is 20,000 subscribers. Our goal was 10,000 subscribers last season. We didn't quite get there, but we have now. So therefore, we can build on that. We can take 10k, 20k for this season. That means we have to get 10,000 subscribers before November. I've just realised off the top of my head. I don't think it's going to happen, but it might happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but it might happen. That's how we're going to end. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, as I said, and I'll see you next time. Well, when I say I'll see you next time, I'll literally see you tomorrow, because we're going to watch the Bahrain Grand Prix together, aren't we? So I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early.